The world is a really large place, and up to 30% of it is covered by the Pacific Ocean. Scattered across the ocean are tiny islands, so tiny they could barely be seen on the map, which has always been inhabited by a special group of people called the Polynesians. Although isolated from the rest of the world, the Polynesians were an advanced civilization. A recent study shows that they traveled across the ocean to other areas on the map. One of their most interesting contacts was with the Native Americans, which resulted in the formation of a different world that we are only discovering. Welcome to the Told You Another Story channel. In today's video, we'll be talking about what happened after the Native Americans came in contact with the Polynesians. As far back as the year 1200, the Polynesians were already well versed in navigating the ocean and traveling on canoes, which were a huge technological advancement for their time. They could travel more than 7,000 kilometers across the Pacific Ocean using the direction of the wind, the path of migrating birds, and the position of the stars as their guide. Over 3,000 years ago, the pioneering Polynesians journeyed through the ocean and eventually settled on a group of islands in what is known as the Polynesian Triangle. This island consists of about 1,000 islands scattered across a vast expanse of the Pacific, stretching for 800,000 square miles, with absolutely no navigation tool and just their deep connection with nature. The Polynesians were able to tell where the next piece of land was located. There was a phenomenon known to the Polynesians as telepa. Telepa was a deeply spiritual concept that the people believed to be one way the spirits guided them while at sea. It manifested itself in the form of brief flashing lights that often pointed the Polynesians in the direction of dry land. Modern-day ocean navigators have been unable to explain telepa, or the source of this mysterious light the ancients spoke of. Regardless of what it was obvious that the Polynesians were highly sensitive to this brief light, and although we don't understand it, we know that it was pertinent to how the Polynesians became masters of the sea. Historians have wondered for a long time if the Polynesians completed the journey and actually landed in any part of South America, and recent discovery shows that this might have been true. A recent study shows that Polynesians and Native Americans who lived in present-day Colombia met about 800 years ago. The relationship between the two people led to the creation of a unique DNA sequence, in not just humans, but in plants as well. Scientists have found this new genome very fascinating, and while they're still exploring it, what they have found so far is quite amusing. Although both tribes were certainly physically intimate, scientists do not know for sure where their meeting happened. The islanders may have sailed the seas to get to the mainlanders or the other way around. Yes, the Polynesians had a higher chance of being the ones to make the journey because of their well-known relationship with the ocean. However, the Native Americans were not lacking in this kind of technology. These Native Americans were closely related to the most advanced civilization at the time, the Incas, and therefore had their hands on some pretty decent sailing tools. Although their sailing experience was limited to the lakes present within the continent, they weren't complete strangers to the concept of sea travel. And because of this, some historians believe that it was possible for them to have drifted to some Polynesian islands. This is one possibility, but compared to the level of expertise of the Polynesians, it is a less plausible one. There are accounts that state that the Polynesians and the Native Americans met up on Easter Island, also known as Rapa Nui, which is famous for its moai statues. Rapa Nui is incredibly hard to locate using a canoe, but the Polynesians had little trouble finding their way there. Since the island is very close to South America, it is a likely spot for the first encounter between the two tribes. At the time of this encounter, it was the first time the South Americans would step foot on the island. Their Polynesian love interests, however, had been on the island centuries before them. According to some accounts, the Polynesians first settled on Rapa Nui in 300 AD. It is even possible that the Polynesians sailed to South America, established romantic relationships with the Native Americans, and brought their new families to Rapa Nui. Genetic evidence suggests that both tribes coexisted on the island in the 1300s, before European contact. In the coming years, however, the island population began to decrease due to the harsh weather and starvation, all caused by the island's inhabitants, or so we were led to believe. Some historians claim that the islanders began to cut down the heads of the moai statues, and in the process they cut down a lot of trees. The rate of deforestation was alarming, and as a result the island lost its shade from the scorching heat, and the islanders lost their main source of food. Another group of historians believes that the deforestation of the island was caused by a rat infestation. Around that time, the population of giant rats skyrocketed, and these creatures attacked and infected the roots of the trees, causing most of them to die from their roots. In any case, the population of the islanders reduced significantly, and the proof of the existence of a mixed DNA was almost wiped away. A recent study that took the genome of over 800 people showed that not all proof of the contact between the Polynesians and Native Americans had been lost. Part of these people were taken from 17 different groups from the Pacific Islands, which include Polynesian Islands and Vanuatu, and the other set of people were from 15 Native American tribes across the Pacific coast. When their DNA sequences were compared, they noticed striking similarities between these tribes. What's interesting is that most of these tribes had absolutely nothing in common, except for shared history, most of which had been wiped away. DNA obtained from people originating from the Marquesas Islands shared incredible similarities with tribes indigenous to parts of Colombia and Ecuador, known as the Zenu. This culture, which is now extinct, thrived from 2000 BC until the 1100s, when its population began to decline. The Zenu were highly skilled people who were masters in all forms of art and canoe making. They were known to have traveled on their canoes to the Pacific Islands. When they got to the Pacific Islands, they were welcomed by the natives and got comfortable, so comfortable that they developed intimate relationships with them. This was the earliest account of an encounter between South Americans and Polynesians, and it is highly likely that this one opened the way for the subsequent encounter at Rapa Nui. Another study conducted in 2014 confirmed the contact between the two people. The study included 27 people who were modern-day citizens of Rapa Nui. These people were found to have Polynesian and Native American ancestry which dates back to between 1300 and 1500. This was at least 200 years before the first Europeans landed on the island. Many people assume that because of the closeness of Rapa Nui to the Pacific coast of South America, it was the only place where Polynesian Native Americans settled. The Zenu people are an exception, we've already talked about, but research has exposed a few more examples. According to research, many Polynesian Native Americans had reached the south of the Pacific Islands by the year 1150. These islands are located more than 2,200 miles away from Rapa Nui. From there, these interracial populations migrated to North Marquesas, Palliser, and Mangareva. Some even returned to Rapa Nui. Another genetic evidence that is proof of this contact is found in plants, specifically a species of sweet potato, which is indigenous to the Andes in South America. These species were found growing on the Pacific Islands and was eaten by Polynesians for many years before Europeans invaded their lands. The introduction of this plant to the Pacific Islands also dates back to the period when genes from the Polynesians and Native Americans began to mix. Despite the amount of evidence that had been found regarding this historical event, only a small number of people still carry the Polynesian Native American genes, and this number is expected to reduce in the coming years. However, this does not mean that the rich culture of these tribes will be forgotten with time, because there's still so much to discover. Thank you for watching. Hit us up in the comments section and give us a thumbs up if you liked the video. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos.